So let's start with the head here. And what we want to do here is control the influence that is on this copy rotation here. When it sets to 0, we want to move this head on its own, and when it sets to 1, we want to use this bone. The head looks at this bone. So first what we want to do here is add a new bone that controls the influence, which is going to be this one. Press Shift A to add it, by the way, and rescale it down. Now I'm gonna place it here because I can, and I'm gonna set add a constraint to it so that to limit its location. Set everything to 0, but the maximum Y location needs to be 0.5 for transform and local space. Now press N and limit this to you don't need to limit this. The constraint is already doing that for you. So now go to the head, and by the way, name the bone first, don't forget about that, and head CTRL. Now right click on this bone here and add driver and name it head control. Then you select the rig, you select the head control bone, the Y location and the local space. Update, by the way, before copy head control and place it here. Be sure to write ×2 because that's why the maximum Y location it sets to 0.5, because this expression needs to be either 0 or 1. So update dependencies and it's done. Now when it's the local location here, local location the Y location here, if it sets to 0, it doesn't it has 0 influence, and if it's up there, it sets to 1, so that you can use this bone instead. It's pretty useful for some types of animation. So let's go to the arms. Now you're going to control the arms here, the parent of this bone here, so that when you move the hips, any of these bones here, it's going to control the parenting. In this section here, it's going to control the influence, which it's going to control if it is parented to this bone or not. So we need a new bone again. Right click, duplicate it, and I'm just going to name it arm control. It can be control 1, and right click here, and now you need to control the influence here. It's gonna be the same thing, just right click, add driver, and arm control 1, and select the rig, the arm control 1, Y location, local space, arm control 1 ×2, and you're done. And now when you move it up, by the way, before I continue here, I'm just going to disable this, because if I don't, it's going to use both of these controls here, but it doesn't matter. So when it sets to 0, no influence. If it sets to 1, total influence. And now you need to do the same process for all of these arms here, or not the arms, all of these influences here, all of these constraints. And I'm going to make a time lapse. So now that I did added the bones here for every single constraint here, now if it's this one is set to 1, the hips are going to move the hand. Now if this one is set to 1, then this spine is going to control it. And you already know that if I move this one, it's going to control, this one controls it. So now we will have to copy the constraints to this bone and both of these targets here, because we want to move them with them. So right click here and pose constraints, copy constraints to the selected bones. Now the only problem here with copying the constraints is that it doesn't copy the influence. So you know what that means? Unless you use a Python script, it means that you need to create a driver for each influence again for each of these bones, which again, this time I'm just going to skip it. Okay, so now everything is working here. The influences are working as intended. Each one controls it. I wouldn't recommend using 3 of them at the same time, because it's going to affect 3 times the location. You're gonna have problems like these, for example, where it moves weird. It's just weird, don't use them. And that's about it.